This is the Doctor, President-elect of the High Council of Time Lords.
I am definitely a madman with a box.
Anyone for jelly, baby?
I'm the Doctor. I'm 904 years old. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Castabras.
Hey Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And this is our special interview episode. We like a good interview episode, don't we?
Yeah, we do, yeah. This is going to be a good one.
It will be a good one. It's been ages since we've done one. It was Mr. Andy before.
That's right, yeah.
Mr. Andy Frankomanen, from those of you who don't know, is the author and overseer of the awesome Lethbridge Stewart novels that have just come out and will be released over the coming year and so on.
Yeah, there's a new one coming out very soon, actually.
Yeah, looks very good.
See if we can get him back on to talk about that one.
So we would normally go through and rattle off the news and blah blah blah, etc. But as Adam and I are kind of underneath it and very busy at the moment, we thought that we would just do a special for our Daphne Ashbrook interview. Instead of just slotting it in, we'll dedicate an entire episode to Grace.
Yes, because we've got lots of things we want to talk to her about, so we figured it'd be worth having some quality time.
Yes. We just recently did our review of the Doctor Who movie, and you guys, and there was a common theme, wasn't there, Adam, that came out from your guys' comments and a kind of general opinion anyway, is that Daphne and the character of Grace is normally very well received and well reviewed, and people want to see more of her in Doctor Who and so on.
Yeah.
And that prompted you to have a chat, should we say?
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah, I was going to say on Twitter, I was just amazed how, the wonders of modern technology. Yeah, Daphne retweeted us, which was very kind of her, retweeted the podcast episode. And, we just sort of got chatting, all three of us, didn't we, really?
Yeah.
And I just sort of casually said, well, if you'd like to come on the podcast anytime, we'd be more than happy to have you on. And almost straight away she replied, sure. And I couldn't believe it. So, yeah.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So, very pleased that we've got her on today.
So kind of best mates now, I guess.
Yeah, I'm thinking so.
Besties.
Yeah, BFFs.
Yeah, she's lovely as well. She's really cool to talk to.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of insight into the whole world of Doctor Who around that time. And a couple of times during that interview, I was like, oh, really? There are a few things that she mentioned that I thought, wow, I didn't realise that was a reason for XYZ or something happening. So, really interesting one.
Yeah, some nice little insights come up, didn't they, as we were talking? I mean, she is lovely to talk to. I mean, we could have probably chatted for at least another couple of hours, I think. So,
yeah.
But which we may end up doing, because she very kindly said about having a drink together at a convention in Chiswick, didn't she? So I'm definitely going to take her up on that offer.
Yes, have a pint or two.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's crack on with our interview with Daphne Ashbrook.
Thank you. Yay. Hi, guys.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm very good.
We're very well, thank you.
Great.
So you, Daphne, you're based over in the US. Are you on the east or the west side?
West.
West. Okay. So is it nice and sunny, hopefully?
It is very sunny today and very warm. We are having a bit of a heat wave again, but that's normal this time of year, so
cool.
Got to put up with it. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
How about you guys? What's the weather like over there?
Well,
it was really good. We had like 30 degrees for a few days, but now it's gone back to standard UK. It's like grey, rain.
Yeah, today's been a bit of a grey one. If you could send a bit of that sunshine our way, that'd be great.
Oh, I'd be happy to, just so long as you send back the cold and I love the cold weather. Actually,
do you?
I have a whole armoire filled with wonderful sweaters that I very rarely get to wear. So.
All right.
Okie dokie. So if you've been over to the UK plenty of times, haven't you?
I'm sorry?
You've been over to the UK plenty of times.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes, several times. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so you know what the weather's like. You get to wear your sweaters here, I guess.
Yes, I bring them with me. The only trouble is then you have to pack them, and that adds a whole bunch of luggage. So,
Yeah.
but it's worth it.
Yeah, suitcase, yeah. Rightio. So thank you very much for joining us and sparing some time. We're going to kick right off with some questions for you because we reviewed the Doctor Who movie recently on the show, and one of the themes that that we kept coming back to, and some of our listeners also commented on as well, was just how good you were as a companion. In the movie. That was a theme that kept popping up quite a lot, wasn't it, Adam? That and one of the things that we got a lot from our listeners and so on was, Grace was such a great companion, and why can't we see more of Grace? And Grace was so good. So when we tweeted you about when that show went out, it was really, really cool that you replied to us pretty much straight away. On Twitter, so that was very cool. So we thought, what a good way to forward on from that episode and get some questions to you than bring you on a podcast. So we're going to get to some of our questions that some of our listeners have asked a little bit later. But I want to kick off with a question for you, and that was, how did you find out about the role initially for the movie? Because it wasn't a standard thing where it was a US or a Canadian production that you would normally see. It was a small British program, really. So how did you find out about the role, and were you interested straight away, or was it something you had to be talked into?
Well, oh no, I didn't have to be. Nobody had to convince me. I actually didn't know anything about Doctor Who. I have since learned, that there were many kind of underground Americans that had been fans for years, but I didn't know anything about it. It was kind of a standard thing for me as far as I was called in like any other audition. They'd sent me the script to read before my first read, and I really loved the script. I thought it was extremely interesting, and I'd never, as I said before, I didn't know anything about it. So
right.
I thought this whole regeneration thing and obviously really strong character to play. And I didn't know who was going to be playing the Doctor initially.
Okay.
And then went in, auditioned, loved the people that I met. Philip Siegel, I believe Matthew Jacobs was there, and then of course Jeffrey Sachs, director, was there, and had a really great read. And then I believe I got a call back. I went back in and read again, and the next thing I know, I got the job. And then I learned who was playing the Doctor, and I happened to be a big fan of Withnail and I. So I knew who Paul was, and I was very excited after that to learn that I would be working with him. You cross your fingers that you're going to get along with whomever you're going to be playing. So, I mean, pretty much every scene I had, he was in the scene with me. So
yeah.
I was just hoping that we would get along. I already knew he was a great actor, and then found out fairly quickly that we were going to have a great time. I met him for the first time when I went to Vancouver, and I had done a fitting and gotten some, also a fitting for eye contacts, because when I went on the dark side and I had the weird eyes, they had to sort of get me ready for that. And I had done that and went in for a fitting and just asked if the wardrobe lady had any pictures of Paul, because he'd already been there and had already done his fitting. So, and they snap Polaroids all the time. So they said, yeah. And they showed me his picture, and he had no hair. I mean, his hair was really super short, and I wasn't prepared for that. He wasn't smiling, and, Polaroids are kind of weird things. I mean, you're kind of an odd one out, I think, if you take a good Polaroid. So I was just sort of, oh my God, he just looks pissed off. So I was kind of nervous. And then went from there to the reading, where we read the whole script out loud. And it was just Paul and I, Jeffrey, Matthew, and Philip. And I sat next to Paul, which I found out later that he was like, "Ooh, she's sitting right next to me. Why did she sit next to me? There's all these chairs." And but I just assumed that they would want to sort of see us together. So found that out later that he was all kind of weirded out that I sat right next to him. But tough beans. We had a great time. We read well together, and then afterwards, Paul asked Jeffrey, who'd you get for the Master? Who's going to be playing the Master? And they said, Eric Roberts. And both of us sort of had the same reaction, because at first blush, he wasn't the person that we would have thought of for that part, There's so many other people that we had in mind. And so we both thought they were kind of messing with us. And so we kind of chuckled. And then they weren't kidding. And so then we looked at each other, and it was like we were on the same page immediately, and thought, well, this is going to be interesting. And, and it really was. He was an interesting master,
Sure.
So it was really a wonderful first meet with him. And then of course the shoot itself was just a delight all the way through. We just had so much fun.
Yeah. One of the things,
for whatever reason, I think we worked well together. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the things we picked up on when we did our review, was that the you can tell that you're all getting on very well. The cast work really well in the film together. So it seems like you and Paul are having a blast.
I think we really did. I mean, it's kind of, I don't really know how to explain why something works as well as it does right off the bat. But part of it is just, that we had the same kind of work ethic. We worked really hard and we didn't complain. And I always like to sort of liken it to a really good ping pong match or a tennis match. You hit the ball over the net, the other person's going to be there to hit it back, or you hope they will. And he was always there. And he was a very generous actor. And I always say he made me a better actor. And I was really grateful to have him right there beside me, or, he had my back, and which helped. And then, of course, I started to learn once I'd been cast and once I was over there and once I met Sylvester.
Oh, yeah.
We within the first week or so, we were all working together, and they started to sort of educate me on what Doctor Who was all about and what I was about to embark on.
Yeah,
and
I was going to ask if you realized it was
lie,
such a big deal. Yeah.
No, not until they started explaining. And I still, until recently, I don't think I really understood the enormity of it. But I started to get an inkling, and I'm not going to lie, I actually was rather a little intimidated. I was like, oh my God, a lot of people are counting on me. And I'm like the first American to be sort of in this position. And so I felt a bit of pressure to get it right. And truthfully, I don't always get roles that are on the funny side of things, which is too bad, because I love doing that. I love playing that. And it's different than a dramatic piece. And so it was a challenge. And again, with being able to, having the good fortune to work with Paul just really helped. And Jeffrey was wonderful. And I thought the writing was clever. And honestly, I always tip my hat to Philip Siegel. He spent 7 long years trying to get the rights to do this movie. And I also wonder, would the new series have been picked up had the movie not been somewhere in the middle of that, that big break, all those years in between.
Yeah, sure.
I think a lot of fans see it as a good sort of bridging between the two, don't they? Because there's a lot of elements from the movie that sort of are in the current series of Doctor Who that maybe weren't there in the sort of original series. So I think a lot of fans see it as a good bridge between the two, actually.
Yeah, I think it helped sort of give the BBC a good idea of what they could do with it in the modern era. Even today, I occasionally will see the film for one reason or another, and there are a lot of hints that I believe that they used to inform themselves on where they wanted to go and how they wanted to approach it. So I think it was a great bridge. between the old and the new. And I think they really fulfilled a lot of different. I mean, there were so many cooks in the kitchen, 3 huge entities that were dictating what they wanted them to do and how they wanted that show to go. And honestly, I feel like they really did sort of some kind of miraculous work to be able to inform a whole new public about Doctor Who in America, and also to have a lot of, what is the word, to really give a good tip of the hat to the old series. To bring Sylvester into it for the regeneration stuff. I know there was some resistance to them doing that, and they got it. And I think it wouldn't have been the same movie at all without having that. No. I was sad that they didn't do that with Paul. I really felt like that was a missed opportunity there. But what can you do? But I think it was a really wonderful in-between kind of thing. I know there was some controversy at the time. Everyone was a little bit, I didn't know it at the time, but the kissing stuff, I guess, was just sort of created this whole firestorm. I actually was reading a book about that on my way to the UK to do my first Doctor Who visit, and I was reading this book on the plane, and people were so upset about that kiss, and I was really scared. I thought, oh my God, I had no idea.
It's your fault. It's your fault.
Yeah, I started the whole darn thing, right? Now everybody's doing it.
That's right.
I was gonna say, now we get it in every episode, more or less.
It's just about, right? Yeah. They haven't kissed yet, though, right? The newest Doctor.
No.
Mr. Capaldi has not kissed Clara.
Not in that way, no.
No.
I don't think they've had some chaste, sweet kiss.
I was just wondering, did you actually, did you go back and sort of do any research or sort of look at any old episodes before you sort of filmed, or did you think it was better to go into it fresh, not knowing all the baggage of the old series?
I didn't make that choice consciously. I didn't really have the time.
Right.
It was a pretty quick from the moment that I got it to the moment that I was in Vancouver and shooting. It was just sort of hit the ground running. I really didn't have time to go back and look. However, I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because as far as Grace is concerned, she didn't know him. She didn't know anything. She just knew about her little scientific world. And so I think it helped me sort of be true to that. I don't know how much that would have influenced me one way or another, but I felt, looking back now, I'm like, that's good. And like I said, I was a little intimidated once I started to learn about it. And I don't think that's a really great way of walking into a show. You want to be as confident as possible to try to do a good job. So I don't know that would have been a good thing for me to kind of pile on.
Probably
as
not,
far
actually.
as the intimidation factor. Yeah.
Yeah. And from the when you say it moved quite quickly, when you got the role and then you were straight up to, or pretty much straight into Vancouver, and you just went straight into production, did you have to deal with, or did you have many dealings with anybody from the UK and the BBC, or was it all like the US and Canadian crew and all that stuff? Was there any of the BBC suits hanging around?
Not that I was aware of. I was basically just, all I can recall at this point was, I'm sure there was probably some visits.
Right.
But I was unaware of it. I was just busy working, Yeah, the best I've got in my recollection is that it was all Jeffrey, Matthew, Philip, Paul, Sylve. And those were the people that were really kind of informing me about what the show itself was about. So As far as BBC goes, I'm sure they were probably around. And I may have met them, but I'm usually so focused on what I'm doing that, I don't usually spend a lot of time with the suits types, because I'm kind of trying to stay in my, be the best actor I can be,
Sure, yeah.
And I had plenty of work to do, so, yeah.
Yeah, because some of the subjects that have come up about the movie that a lot of people have spoke about in the past, and I think we've even mentioned it on the podcast a couple of times, is when we say things like Sylvester being involved and certain elements that were included in the film, like the whole TARDIS thing and how the Master could have been, and sonic screwdrivers and all that stuff. Was that mainly all of Philip Siegel's thing? Was this all, you said he was working on this for many years to get this going, so was this his bag, his baby? He didn't really have much in the way of interference, should we say, from the BBC?
Oh, I'm sure he did. I mean, I can't imagine that he didn't. I'm sure the BBC was all over it, as well as Universal and Fox. So, I think that he had to answer to many masters. Forgive the pun. But I really think that he was probably struggling with that regularly.
Yeah.
Whether or not that was happening while we were actually shooting is a mystery to me. I don't know that there was a lot of that once we started shooting. But as far as the development of the script, etc., I think that was when he was probably dealing with a lot of things. Yeah. And like I said, there were specific demands. I'm certain. Okay. By all of those entities, to make certain things a certain way. And like I said, I really feel like it was a miracle that he was able to pull it off, because I think it stood on its own. There was enough information to educate the people like me who didn't know anything about it. And yet it still had the charm, and it still had some new elements. As far as I know, there were new elements to his doctor. I know Paul was really interested in a melancholy kind of a approach.
Yep.
A loneliness to that doctor, and the fact that the load that he was carrying wasn't a small thing, and so I feel some of his portrayal was reflected that, and so I think that was in the script as well. Right. As well as all the charming, fun, silly stuff. And again, I just really loved the quick repartee that we got to play with so much of the time. Mm-hmm. Even when it wasn't necessarily screaming out in the script, I think we found the rhythm to that. And so much of comedy is a rhythmic kind of a thing. And the adventure of it, Yeah. I'm proud of that little movie. I really am.
And I was going to ask, actually, if you were happy with the finished result, because there is a lot of love in it. One thing that does come through when you watch it is these little details that are thrown in for the fan and for new viewers. But yeah, I wondered if, were you happy when it was done? And I don't know how long it was before you watched it after you'd finished it, but were you happy with the finished product?
Well, honestly, I'm terrible at watching myself and even listening to myself. I don't know that I'll be able to sit down and listen to this later because it's really hard for me to do. I'm not really, it's creepy. But also as an actor, I don't know that it's a good thing to necessarily have a picture of yourself in your head when you step in front of the camera. And that's really hard to kind of get rid of if you've spent a lot of time watching yourself. So I tend to shy away from all of that. So I will say this is kind of a funny story. We were invited to this big to-do, the first big opening red carpet ta-da moment for the movie at the Directors Guild Theater. And I wasn't certain that I was going to be able to sit and watch myself, through the whole thing. I just wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. And it was just packed. There were millions of people there. There were all this press. I had chosen a seat in the very back row so that I knew that if I had to get out, I wouldn't be noticed. I could just slip out the back. And truthfully, that's exactly what I did. I sat down, I watched the very first several scenes, but as soon as I think it was when I was running in slow-mo down the hallway with my shoes in my hand.
Oh, and a big dress.
That I just went, I can't do it. So I had to get up, and I went outside and had a glass of wine and waited for everyone else to be done with it. And so I didn't watch it for years.
Right.
And I knew I had a great time doing it. I knew that people were pleased with what they were seeing in the dailies. And that was good enough for me for a long time. And then I think it was actually at a convention or something where I sat down and watched it and saw it for the first time, really. And I think that's the first time. And it was in front of a bunch of people, so it was kind of weird. And we were sort of doing comments as we watched it and stuff like that. And it was kind of fascinating. It was hard to kind of make comments because my eyes were really wide. I was just so blown away by seeing what it all looked like. I thought it was a beautiful film. I thought, first of all, Glenn McPherson, our cinematographer, was so good. I really think he did a beautiful job. And so in just that respect, plus the technology of the time we were really using what we had at that time. As far as special effects, et cetera. So all of that I was fairly impressed with. I mean, really impressed with.
It's beautifully shot, actually. That's one of the things we said in the review. It's really nicely directed. Some of the shots, of the way it's all sort of twirling around, and it is really beautifully shot.
Yeah, I agree. I really think that, everybody did a great job. There's not really anything about it that I can point to and say we failed there. I won't publicly do this for you now, but I can probably point to a few moments that I had as an actor where I could see that I wasn't absolutely thrilled with what I did. A few moments here and there where I was like, could have done that better. But that's normal. Another reason why I don't like to watch myself. But it can be educational, that's for sure. But for the most part, I was really pleased. And what I felt on the set was there on the screen. The joy that we had working together, I could see it. And it really worked well. So I was very pleased with that and relieved, to be honest. But yeah, so I've seen it a few times since then. I did this thing a few years back on the 50th anniversary year where I gathered people online to actually sit down and watch the film together. We called it Regenerate, EIGHT, right?
Cool. Yeah,
cool. And I basically just picked a date. I have a web Dalek who helps me technologically. And he suggested that we do this. And I was like, is it even possible? And he said, sure. So we did this thing. We built up to it for a couple months. We thought maybe 200, 300 people would be, watching it with us. I got Gary Russell, who wrote the book about the movie. He was in Cardiff. I got a guy named Ken Deep, who is a huge Doctor Who fan and who does conventions over here and is a good friend of mine. He lives in New York, so he was in New York. I got Yiji from the movie. He was in Vancouver because he's a Canadian, and that's where he lives. And then I got me in LA. And we all sat down and we did a big countdown, 10, 9, 8 kind of thing. Everybody pushed start at the same time, and we all watched the film together. And we did a chat while we were watching it. And it was really informative. I learned a lot that I didn't know before, and had accidentally pulled together a bunch of people that had very different perspectives and information that I was unaware of. So it really was an informative, really cool chat. And turns out we had over 7,000 households involved watching the film. And we can only count one household, but a lot of people were having big parties and watching it together. So there were lots and lots of people. And then 84 countries, I think, were represented. So that's how many people were, and how many different countries. I mean, it was across the world. Australia, Brazil, places that I hadn't even heard of before. People were watching it. And then there were over 10,000 people that were twittering, chatting, doing comments of some sort about the movie as we were watching it. And so I don't know that those people were actually sitting down. Some of those people were at work. But so it turned out to be this incredible thing. But I really felt like, especially in America, they didn't release the film here until 2011.
Wow.
So a lot of Americans, if they weren't old enough and didn't get the VHS recorded, really didn't know about the movie. And so I was really trying to make a stand. I was going to say, I really want at least in America, I really wanted a lot of Americans who had not seen it to see it. And so I was pointing them to links where they could buy the film. And a lot of people did. And it was a great success.
That sounds awesome.
It does sound really good. Yeah, we should do it again. I'd like to be a part of that.
Okay.
Cool, let's do it.
I'll work that out.
Yeah.
So, more questions. Now, from what I understand, working on a movie or a TV show, there can be a lot of waiting around while shots are being set up and all that kind of stuff, especially if there's things like visual effects or car chases, motorbike chases, all that kind of stuff. What was like a typical day or a typical evening or whatever shoot was like with Paul? So when you were not in front of the camera, what was it like just hanging out with Paul? Because I imagine there was a bit of time to kill while they were setting up different shots and stuff.
Sure. Honestly, it was almost 100% shot at night.
Okay.
So we were all in our own world. Anybody who's worked the night shift knows what I'm talking about. You start to kind of, especially if you're working with a good big handful of people, you just forget the rest of the world even exists because everyone else is sleeping. It's just very strange. And the longer it goes on, the weirder it can get, especially if you're not good at sleeping during the day. So you can get kind of dingy, which for me is normal. I'm always a little bit dingy. But and Paul and I just guess we just laughed all the time. That is my memory of the downtime. Was we were just laughing all the time. I remember one specific time when it was Sylv and Paul and I, and we were all sitting in our chairs in the dark somewhere waiting for this, for them to be ready for us. And they were trying to teach me some kind of dialect, like how to say cow. That's what I really remember. Cow. I can't do it. Even to this day, I can't do it. But because I kept trying, they kept laughing. And so that was just one little memory that I have of us just laughing until we were crying. And then I think one night we went to a pub and we're drinking, pints. And Sylv whipped out some spoons and started playing them. So that was the first time I'd experienced that. I was amazed, still am to this day. Every time he plays the spoons, I'm always amazed at how good he is. I should learn.
He loves those spoons.
Yeah, he does.
I know it. He really does. And he should. It's it's just the coolest thing. Who does that, right?
It's a dying art.
Sylv is the only one I know. Yeah, it's dying art. And so we spent a lot of time just laughing. I seem to recall being in a music store, and we were sort of sharing music. He was educating me about the Smiths and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And I was kind of getting him into some Billie Holiday. He was already, I think, aware of her, but I picked out a few albums. We did some kind of music, and he was very into opera, so he knew all about Puccini and all of that, so that was helpful.
Mm.
But that's the best I've got, I think, other than it was just so much fun.
You had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I noticed, you talking about filming at night, actually, when we rewatched it the other week for our review, was the last scene in the film where, and I hadn't really picked up on this before, but you can see that it's absolutely bucketing down with rain. And
yeah.
Everybody
was
looks
very
like it was
unhappy.
The hair everyone's hair is very frizzy. Paul's wig is very frizzy. I was just thinking that looks like that wasn't, the funnest time to do that.
Actually, I like I said, I love weather, but I know that it was freaking everybody else out because continuity-wise, it's not very kind to the continuity people. But we just sort of had to do it. And I do remember this is something that Yuji did. There's a moment when Yuji's kind of backing away from us as he's leaving, and we were at this park where where they had all these like cement slabs.
Oh yeah,
as a walkway over the water, and Yuji, when he was backing away, accidentally slipped or just stepped the wrong way and went in the water. Didn't fall. I don't think he fell down. He just stepped into the water and it was like splash. And so that was he was very, very wet at that point.
yeah.
But yeah, we all had curly wet hair in that scene. That's for sure.
I think one of the things a lot of people sort of ask, and this I might be jumping the gun, I'm sure one of our listeners has asked this, but if they had have gone on to commission a series, would you have been up for doing a full series?
Oh, I would have loved it. I mean, what's
Yeah.
not to love? I mean, knowing that we worked so well together, it was a great character. All the different adventures we could have gone on, all the fun stuff that we could have done. And it would have been shot in Vancouver, which is one of my favorite places on the planet. So for all those reasons, I would have jumped at the chance. I wasn't sure that I would have been invited, until I think it was the final week of shoot when Matthew Jacobs, we were standing around in the dark waiting, and he just kind of casually asked if I would be interested in coming along if they picked it up. And
Yeah.
I think I screamed, yes, and hugged him, which gave him a heart attack. I think I scared him to death. But yeah, no, I would have been thrilled. Oh my goodness. That would have been so much fun.
And has there ever been any mentions of a possibility of you coming back at all? Has anybody asked you that a possibility from over in Vancouver, the US, or somebody from the BBC? Has it ever been mentioned to you since then?
Only only as a sad kind of comment that it's the characters of Grace and Chang Li are owned by, I think, Universal, and they own the rights to those characters. So, and for whatever reason, the BBC or anybody else, even Big Finish, haven't been able to get the rights so that the characters can't be reproduced in any way. So I've done some Big Finish work, but only as different characters.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a sad little thing. They're kind of locked away in some kind of limbo, those characters.
That's a shame.
Yeah, we should petition that immediately.
I think people would love to have those characters back on Big Finish, yeah, because people love Paul on the Big Finish audios, and it would be so good to have some adventures with you back with Grace as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
It would be it would be,
And Chang Li,
fantastic.
the three of you, I think, would be just awesome.
Absolutely. We would all love it, I'm sure, but I just don't know that it'll ever happen. But yeah, go ahead and start a petition, for goodness sake.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it for sure.
Well, things seem to be moving big time in Big Finish at the moment, so anything is possible, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing great.
And there has
Great
been a lot of interest actually in Paul McGann and the Eighth Doctor's era, because Stephen Moffat, the showrunner for the show at the moment, I don't know if you saw it, but there was like a small, I think it was a 10 or 12 minute episode that they did for the 50th anniversary with Paul.
Yes,
where they
of course
filmed.
I saw that webisode, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So there is some definite interest for his Doctor and his era, and there's also there's a new Titan comic run as well that's going to come out for the Eighth Doctor too. So there's definitely a lot of interest for his Doctor and his era. So I think if there's a way that you guys could get on that as well, it would be so cool, because like Adam said, I think there are so many more adventures for you guys to go on. It would be amazing.
You know what's interesting is I think you're right. I think that there's a huge fan base for him, and I think that it was fantastic what Stephen did with that little webisode. I think that was his tip of the hat to the Eighth Doctor, which was sort of, we all sort of felt funny about, where we fit in. And I think there's been some controversy over the years, back and forth about what's canon, what isn't, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that was Stephen's way of sort of saying, he's the Eighth Doctor, and it really happened, and you can't take that away. He was number 8, and 8 comes after 7 and before 9. So there he is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that really could be received well if it was ever able to kind of happen. But like I said, who knows about these rights? I mean, it would be really fascinating to talk to somebody who knows for sure what that would entail to get the rights and to bring those characters all back together again.
Yeah. Well, if the Eighth Doctor's canon, then you guys are canon. There's no doubt.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have a word with our people. They'll talk to your people.
Okay.
And we'll go from there. But in all seriousness, that was one of the main. That was one of the questions that popped up the most, I think, from our listeners was, would Daphne continue as a companion if it was offered? Is Daphne going to come back? Blah blah blah. So there's definitely a need for you guys to come back. Put it that way.
You know what's interesting too. To that end, in the webisode, he lists his past companions.
Yeah.
But you'll notice that he does not list Grace or Chang Li, because they can't legally do it.
Oh, what?
And so, it was like I sat there watching it and I was like, wait a minute, dang it. I was just like, shoot. Really sad. Whatever.
But with Doctor Who, anything is possible. That's the other thing. They can always find a way around these things.
Yes, they can. It wasn't. I'm probably going to get myself into trouble here, but wasn't he only supposed to have 12 lives?
And there's a whole can of worms.
Yeah. And so now we've got John Hurt's involved in there. I'm not sure I understand all of that, but I love him and I'm thrilled. But there are ways around it.
Sure. I was thinking, Gary, talking of our listeners' questions, should we rattle through a few of those?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I've got another question before we get on to the listener ones. Daphne, when an actor has finished with his contribution as the Doctor and the BBC kind of go into this lockdown period where they start auditions for new actors to play the Doctor and so on. Every time that happens, there's always a big discussion about should we have a female Doctor? And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, on how you felt about having, or if there was to be a female Doctor. If you think that would be cool,
get me in trouble.
Would you think that'd be cool or not so much?
I would love it. I mean, for me, from my perspective, which is not, I'm probably not the right person to talk to about this because I don't have the same history that you guys all have as far as growing up with it and feeling so, I don't know, protective over it and know everything there is to know about the Doctor. Mm-hmm. But from an actor's perspective, I think, and I'm not saying that I would be the person that should play him, but I definitely think a female Doctor would be really fascinating to see. Yeah. And I think they could get a lot of mileage out of it too. It could be, I think, funny, very funny. But I know that there are a lot of people that I'm close to that love the Doctor, and they do not feel that way. They just think that that's just too far, a bridge too far or something. So I don't know. But I think it could be pretty fascinating to see.
Okay.
I think we found a good way of bringing you back.
Ah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, you go.
I don't know. I think an American and a woman, I don't know. I think it was almost too much for everybody to have an American companion, too. That was like,
we'd have
everybody crazy.
A Doctor Who meltdown. Everybody would have a freak out. Yeah. However cool it might be, people have a freak out. Okay, shall we rattle through some questions that our listeners sent in, otherwise we'll get in trouble.
Yes.
won't we?
Okay.
And then yeah.
Right. So this was from a listener called Callum MacArthur. And I'm pretty sure we know the answer to this one. Would you come back to the series or Big Finish with Paul McGann?
I actually have come back. I did work with Paul, I think it was in 2004. We did a Big Finish thing together, but I wasn't able, obviously, to play Grace.
Yeah.
If they ever release Grace from her chains of hell, I would be there in a heartbeat. It would be so much fun to kind of explore where Grace is today. And any chance to work with Paul again, of course, would be welcomed. So, and we did. We had a great time doing the Big Finish thing. I think it was called The Next Life. And I played a character called Perfection or something.
Yeah.
Which was daunting, to say the least. But it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. And I would love to do that, yeah.
Callum also asked, actually, if there was another Doctor that you could work with, who would you like it to be? Obviously, you've already worked with Sylvester and Paul. So is there any other Doctor that you would love to appear with?
I'm always terrible at this. And there's probably a question there, who's your favorite Doctor, too? I should just abstain, but I'm going to say what I really feel and makes Paul just sort of throw up. I think that every single Doctor, and I've seen a smattering of all of them, I'm fairly certain. Yes, I've seen at least one episode of every single Doctor. And I just think they're all unique and they all bring something really cool and different and exciting to the character, to the story. So I'm up for all of them. I'm partial to, obviously, my Doctor and to Sylvester, who I adore.
Peter Capaldi?
I would love to work with Peter. I have not met him. And I think he's just a fabulous actor. I just think he's so much fun to watch. So I would, and I've watched him over the years in many things. So I'm a fan. And I love Matt Smith. I love Eccleston. I love Tennant. I love all the new guys. I love Troughton. I thought he was so funny.
Yeah.
And the way he and Fraser worked together reminded me a little bit of the way I don't know, there was a similar kind of feel to their working together that I felt I had with Paul. And maybe that's not fair to say. Maybe I'm, speaking too highly of myself. But I just thought they were so amazing. And there was this little tit for tat that they had going, little quick looks to each other. There was a rhythm to what they did. They were so cute together. And so, yeah, I would have loved to work with Troughton. And I think Peter Davison is lovely. I just think he's so funny and smart. I have met him. Real sweetheart. I love Colin so much. I mean, we sing together when we see each other. So we would have the best. Oh, my God. It's just so much fun to hang out with him. And so, yeah, I mean, I can't really point to anyone that I would, choose over another, really, because I think they're all so interesting and wonderful. So that's my diplomatic answer. And Paul always kind of glares at me when I give that answer. He's like, shut up. I can't help it. That's the way I feel. So there you go.
So you like plenty of Doctors then? It's not just Paul. You're a fan of quite a few, it sounds like.
I'm a fan of all of them. I really am. I think there's certain things about Eccleston's performance that I really loved. I think Tennant is just amazing. Matt Smith was, for me, was when I really submersed myself into the show. That was my opportunity to really get a strong feeling of what it's like to sort of see it all. And I think he was just fantastic, Yeah. And I loved what Moffat has done for the show. Russell T Davies was, amazing as well. So there's it's hard because I just feel like everybody, when they bring their game to the show, I can see the value and the talent there. So
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of eliminate anybody, really.
Cool. One of the questions that you have to excuse us, this question's going to come up quite a lot, as you can probably imagine. One of the questions from our listener, Daniel Seligman, he says, do you watch the new series? And if so, which new Doctor do you think you would have the most fun travelling with? So I guess you've kind of answered that already, but do you watch the new series with Capaldi? And
I've seen some of it. I haven't seen it all. I'm actually so busy right now doing, I'm producing a film. So I'm literally 24/7 working on that and have not been able to check out some of the newest stuff. But I did see the first several episodes, and I felt, oh, good, okay, they've got it in hand.
Yeah.
But I would love to work with Matt Smith. He just cracked me up, and he was also, I think, conflicted. Where they took him in the story was really fascinating to watch. I thought. So yeah, but I mean, Tennant is amazing too. So it's just, I'm terrible. I can't really just pick one. Sorry.
Yeah, you want a piece of all of them.
I do. Dang it.
Dang.
I want to kiss them all.
I've got a question here that I love. I'm just sort of scrolling down a little bit, Gary. It's from Callum Johnston. He says, if you could play a monster instead of Grace, which monster would you play?
Well, the scariest one for me is the Weeping Angel. So I think that I could do a really good Weeping Angel. I think that would be my choice right there. I think they're so scary. Still give me the heebie-jeebies.
They are a good one.
They are a good one. Yeah, Weeping Angels. Yeah. Okay, let's go to George Coppen. Are there any scenes or moments from the movie that really stand out for you?
I really thought that there's a couple. One is, it's a really short little scene, but I just think it's so funny. When we're in the elevator together, and I don't know who he is yet, neither does he for that matter, and he just keeps staring at me in the elevator, and I'm just so grossed out. I'm just like, oh, goody. I got a live one here. I just thought that scene was so funny. I don't think there was any dialogue even, but I just love that little moment. Also, I really loved the scene in the ambulance where we're going like a bat out of hell. I'm kind of pissed off at him, and he's just irritating me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And there's just that quick repartee again. It's just a crazy little scene, and I was intimidated by that scene. I knew it was going to have to be really perfect, and it felt like that we actually achieved what we needed to in that scene. So I love that scene.
Oh, cool.
But there's many scenes. I think there's several scenes in Grace's apartment that I love between Paul and I that I thought were really cool.
Yeah, so
pretty to watch.
Yeah, cool. So it sounds like it's more the smaller intimate moments, whether it be comedic or quite deep, those interactions with Paul, even though they wouldn't be classed as like the classic standout scenes like the regeneration and that kind of stuff, but those little scenes where the two of you are you're in the zone sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I there are several of those that we those moments that we found that were just, I don't know, it just makes it all worthwhile as an actor. It's kind of rare, honestly.
Right.
I've been in the business for a really long time, and I can maybe count on one hand how many great experiences, really, really satisfying actor-wise.
Yeah.
Satisfying experiences on film. I've had probably more of those feelings, more of those moments on stage than I have on film. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't always get parts on film that are like that, where I can really have fun with a comedic kind of moment. I have done on stage several characters where I've gotten to really have some fun that way. And maybe that's what I'm thinking of, because I seem to play a lot of women that cry a lot. I don't know why. But I get a lot of really dramatic, crazy dramatic roles, which can be very satisfying too. I mean, I've had some really incredible moments from an actor's perspective. There was a mini series I did called Intruders, where I had to do some really crazy stuff, really challenging stuff as an actor, and I felt like I did it. You know, when you walk away from something and feel like, okay, I think I got that. You can always find room for improvement. That's a fact. But when you feel like, hey, I left it on the floor, as they say, I went out there and I gave it everything, and so that in a way has to be enough. Especially since unless you're editing it and directing it and doing everything, you're really all you have is between action and cut.
Yeah.
And so if you can feel that you've achieved what your job was, which is to be completely committed, and believe what's happening to you, be really as pure as you can with that, and seamless as you can, and believable as you can, then you've done your job, you know?
Yeah. So you feel like you got some of that when you were working with Paul. So I got a lot of that. Yeah. So those cool scenes where even like little things like you were saying, like when he's just staring at you, yeah, in the elevator is really funny. Like those little things. So you felt like you kind of once your scene had finished, you just kind of strutted off and you're like, yeah, nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, let me put it this way. I felt like I said, I hadn't seen it for the film itself for so many years after the fact. So all I could do is judge it by how it felt in the moment. And there's a side of you that's going through the experience, but you know, if we did this right, that's going to be super funny. That's going to be a hopefully a laugh out loud moment, you know? And I love making people laugh if I can. Even if they laugh at me, that's okay with me. I've decided.
One of the little scenes actually I've always loved is the very last scene. Actually, saying just about little scenes that perhaps are not sort of stand out or anything, but they sort of work nicely. And I've always loved it when the Doctor asks Grace to go with him, and she turns around and says, "No, you come with me." And I've always just loved the fact, because you know it's the fact he's really surprised that. It's almost as if I've never really thought of, you know, no one's really asked me to go with them before. It's always me that does all the work. So I've always just loved that little scene, you know.
Yeah, that's down to the writing, you know. There were lots of really wonderful little moments and firsts from what I've been told by that relationship, you know. And so. And that was a cool moment, you know. Grace is a strong female character, and it does. In fact, I think doesn't she even save the world or something?
Yeah,
she starts the Tardis, right?
Yeah.
And then goes and gets the Doctor out of that thing and sort of saves everything, you know. So that was kind of cool too. Took me a long time to remember that. Hey, yeah, I sort of saved the world.
She definitely earns her place on the Tardis, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, one of our other listeners did ask that. Debbie Melrose, she said, how did it feel to have been part of the film that paved the way for the new version and direction of Doctor Who? Which is kind of true. It does kind of all fit in with that, I think.
Yeah, it took me a long time to kind of maybe, you know, to really actually think that, you know, that it had influenced anything at all, really. But the longer that I'm around fans and see the new series, et cetera, and then reflect at, you know, what place the movie has for in the world of Doctor Who, and I just do. I see it as a lot of indications. There's lots of stuff, as we've talked about before, that influenced the new series and helped kind of bring it into the modern era. And you know, I even though I know that there are people that had mixed feelings about that, partly I think because it was partially American made. I think that was also an issue for a lot of the fans that were, diehard fans from the beginning,
Sure.
So, but I see it as it just informed the new series to some extent. And I've even been told that by Phil Collinson, the producer for the new series in the first several years. I was on a panel with him in Chicago years ago, and he actually said that right out loud. And it was the first I'd ever heard of it, anybody say anything like that. So I thought, oh, okay. I didn't know that. Great. Made me feel less like I snuck in the back door and I really don't really belong here, which both Yuji and I have felt at one time or another. In the very beginning, when we first started doing conventions, we were always like, are you sure you want me to come? Okay, I'll come. Sure. But yeah, we weren't really sure how we fit in, but I think it's all there now. And I think the movie stands on its own. I think it's still funny to watch, I think.
Yeah, it is.
And like I said, it's just a beautifully shot. And yeah, I think they pulled it off. I think they did.
There's a lot of love in that film, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We have got quite a lot. Oh yeah. I gotta say, we have got quite a lot of questions from our listeners, a lot of which has been covered, and we want to get on to talking about your new project. So I'm just gonna give a sort of shout out, I think, to the people who have asked stuff that we've kind of covered, and because of time wise. So Yanto Williams, Harry Williams, Ryan Anthony, Matthew Gibson Duxbury, James Wilson from Hugh Alex Reviews, Liam Egan, and Thomas Andrew Evans, plus Harry Walker and Jace Howes all ask questions and would all like to say a big hello to you. So just wanted to get their names in there because they all submit stuff and we've kind of covered it. And we want to get on to talking about your new project as well. So those guys all say
thanks,
hi.
Everybody. I'm saying hi back, and thank you so much for sending questions in. That makes me feel... it makes me feel good. What can I say?
we literally got loads. And I just think for time-wise, if we had time, we'd be here all night. But yeah, we got loads of questions, and thanks for everyone who sent one in. That's really cool.
Do you get asked a lot of those questions at conventions as well? Are they popular questions? Like, would you like to carry on as Grace and all? If the series was picked
I get
up.
That. Sure, I get that question. I think the most common question is, who's your favorite Doctor?
Oh, okay.
And let me see. And what was Paul like to work with?
Yeah.
And how was he to kiss? Oh my God! Yeah.
How was it?
How was he? Now look what I did. Look what I just did.
Out of 10.
Lovely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Out of 10.
He was lovely. What can I say? Look, the thing that was funny for me is that I felt like, I've had to, I'm not going to, I've had to kiss a lot of my leading men. You know what I mean? I've had to do that. So I didn't think much about it. I just thought, especially the first kisses were in the park. And I just thought that was funny. I do that again. That line. That was one of my favorite lines. I just thought it was so funny. So yeah, if it makes me laugh, then I'm always in good shape. But no, he was lovely and he was a gentleman. And, that final kiss was the one where we actually talked about how we would do that. And, chaste was the word of choice. So, and that's what we did, it was just sweet. It wasn't nearly as sexual as I think people felt about it at the time, especially after having seen some of the kisses since, where even I was kind of like, wow, that's super sexual.
They're like, whoa, yeah.
Where I didn't feel that way with our kisses. I felt like they were funny and then chaste, So, yeah, that's how that was. It was wonderful.
Were they? Was that in one take, or did you want to do some more?
You're just terrible. Let me put it this way. If we'd had to do it again, I would not have complained.
Oh, yeah.
No complaints here.
No complaints.
So let's jump in the TARDIS then and come up to date in the future. And I've been seeing all these wonderful pictures on Facebook of you in what looks like a most amazing location for your latest project called Once More We're Feeling. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, it was. I've been writing for years and just never really did anything with it. I mostly just wrote for myself, really. And then lately, in the last few years, I've thought I really should just do what I always tell everyone to do, which is create your own opportunities and, don't wait for other people to give you a job, especially actors, because most of our lives are spent waiting for someone else to say yes.
Yeah.
Which can be, really irritating sometimes. So, and these days with all of our, amazing technological abilities or whatever opportunities, you can do it yourself. So I had written a film, and I really love this film. It's a feature-length film, and I was learning how to produce, because I've never produced a film. I've done a couple stage productions where I've produced plays, but never filmed. So I thought I better educate myself. So I started talking to people and reading books, and just really saw what a huge endeavor it is. So I then thought, you know what, let's do a short first. Let's start small and work your way up. Get your arms around it, learn, and then get into the longer version. But so I decided to go ahead and dig out a short that I'd written years ago after I had gone to the amazing Joshua Tree National Park for just to hang out years ago. And I climbed a rock. I've got a problem with heights. I knew I had a problem with heights. But when I saw this rock and I climbed up, I didn't think it was a problem. It just didn't seem like it was that high. As soon as I get to the top, I turn around to come down and had a horrible attack of heights, fear, and just basically just laid down on the rock. I got stuck there, freaking out for like an hour and a half. And while I'm experiencing this, I'm also, there's a side of my brain that's watching myself go through this. And I just think this is the funniest thing. I mean, I look so stupid. And so I knew that it was funny from the outside looking in. But anyway, so I finally forced, out of sheer will, got myself off of that rock, basically just out of the fear of the humiliation that I would feel when they had to call the fire department or something. And I would be telling them to get away from me. Don't touch me. I'm not getting on that ladder. No, I cannot let go of the rock. Just go away. And I just thought, this is so stupid. I can't have this happen. And so I actually just forced myself off the rock, and I left there never looking back. I thought, I don't need to ever see Joshua Tree again. I don't ever need to do this. I just was ready to leave. But I knew it was funny, so I thought, I'm going to write this as a short. So I did, and put it away. And so now, years later, I think I should do a short. Let's do the short. So I grab it, and I also had worked several times with this actor, Jason Britt, who's an amazing actor, on stage, and had seen him on stage as well many times, and just thought, I want to work with that guy, because I know he'll hit the ball back. And so then I had to rewrite the script because he's quite a bit younger than I am, and I thought, well, I can't have it be a love story if I'm going to be working with this young guy. Gross, right? So I start to rewrite it, and I'm rewriting it, and I'm rewriting it, and I just can't get it. It's just not happening. And, in a short, you only have like 15 to 20 pages to tell a whole story that anybody's going to care about. So you're so limited. And I just finally gave in to the fact that the love story has to be there to make it to get the story out quick, make it happen, and I'll just make that part of the conflict and part of the funniness of this moment. And then, of course, my favorite film of all time is Harold and Maude, which, granted, I am not 80 years old, and Jason is not 18 or 19 years old. But, there's a spread of age there. And I thought, well, okay, I'll just kind of go along with this. So then I started to write it, and it all was just coming out and worked well and created these funny moments. And And there's also some heavy dramatic stuff involved. We do deal with issues of suicide and PTSD and just a lot of, there's an undercurrent of some real heavy stuff going on there, which for me are my favorite films, when there's some really heavy, uncomfortable topics being dealt with, and with humor whenever at all possible. I just think the pill is easier to swallow, and it kind of can open you up to having an understanding about issues when there's humor involved. So, that's sort of what I've got here, is this crazy script with these two crazy people on a rock, or two or three or four, and the amazing backdrop of Joshua Tree. We're raising funds right now. I hope I can raise enough to actually be able to shoot up there, because it's not cheap. I basically have to bring all the crew with me and put them up, so that's kind of expensive. And so, that's what I'm working on now, like a crazy person. But it's very exciting and fulfilling, even with all the work involved. But it's really going to be fun, and I think it's going to be a really beautiful film to see. I've got a great director of photography and two women directing it, co-directing, and a woman editor, trying to fill as many spots with women as I can, because I think that women are a little bit overlooked in this industry.
Cool.
I don't think it's by design. I think it's just the history of this industry. And so I think it's time to kind of, look for the talented ladies out there who want to work. So that's what I'm doing.
I noticed there was a lot of girl power on this project. Yeah, female writer, female producer, female editor. Yeah, I wondered if that's a conscious choice or if that's just the way it worked out.
No, I'm consciously doing that. And I still have about half the crew to get, and I'm going to keep on trying to find the ladies, because there's a lot of talent out there.
Sure.
And I don't see why not. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Yeah, and we'll put the link in, because as you said, you're raising money for this through Indiegogo. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, we're on Indiegogo. We're over halfway through. I think we have a couple more weeks or so to go. And whether we make our goal or not, the funds are going to be used for the film. One way or another, the film will get made. If we can't go to Joshua Tree, then there are other places to shoot. Just they won't be quite as exquisite as that location is, but it'll still be a beautiful film. We just have to find different rocks that are more local. Yeah. That would save a lot of money. But I prefer to shoot there, so that's what I'm working towards every day.
We'll put a link in the show notes, and obviously urge people to give to this project, because like you said, you've been posting a lot of photos on your official Facebook page, and it does look like an amazing location, and it's a really cool idea. I like the fact it's inspired by a true event as well, something that actually happened to you. So how long is this short going to be roughly, do you think?
Right now we're at 17 pages. I've been polishing and tweaking, and it was at 20, so it's down to 17. Going to probably keep it about there, because you think of every page is about a minute. That's the way you kind of look at it overall. But it does kind of go quickly. So we had a read through the other night. We had a rehearsal, and we actually timed it with someone reading all of the descriptions, because there's a lot of stuff where there's just action kind of thing happening and no dialogue whatsoever. So, and even in that read through, it was, I think, 18 minutes long. And that was when we had 20 pages. So it's going to be quick, but it'll be a ride that you won't forget. I hope.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it's a crazy little ride.
Yeah. And if people want to go over there to Indiegogo now and check it out and to donate, just go on to indiegogo.com and do a search for Once More with Feeling.
Yeah, and there's a cool little video you've done, haven't you? Like a little YouTube video that tells you about it. So it's really good.
Sounds very, very cool. Yeah.
And jumping in the TARDIS just once more to go into the future, Daphne, something I'm very excited about is you are coming to the UK for a couple of conventions. So I'm really hoping to meet you. I think
you've got to come.
I will. Yeah. I'm coming to the Chiswick one, Phantom Film one. Yeah. And
Right.
what's the other one you're doing? Dimensions?
Dimensions, yes.
Oh, yes.
Going to do those
Yep.
two, and to go see my friends get married. I'm not sure where they are right now, but
Bring
they're
your
over there
jumpers.
somewhere.
Don't forget your jumpers.
Yes, I'll bring my jumpers. This is in October, so yeah.
Right.
I think it's October 10 through the 16th or something that I'll be over there.
Yeah. You'll need your jumpers then. Yeah. In October.
Yeah, you
I'm
probably
hoping I
will,
can
yeah.
get another big finish in.
Oh, that would be great. That would be really good. We'd like some more Big Finish from you.
That would be
I'm
awesome.
hoping.
Yeah.
Hoping.
Yeah.
We'll see. Cross your fingers.
Well, so that'd be cool. Yes, we'll definitely get to one of those conventions and we'll say hi.
Please
cool.
do.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet you guys face to face.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Cool.
So thank you very much, Daphne, for taking the time out to come on the show and answer some questions. And we know you're really busy at the moment with your new project. It's been
My
really,
pleasure.
yeah, it's been great chatting to you. It's you've got an infectious kind of way of with people. You seem to find the humour and the funny side to life, which is great. A great attitude to have. So yeah, thank you for that. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I love you. Thank you.
Thank
And I
you.
hope we can meet in October.
So that was the fantastic Daphne Ashbrook.
She's lovely.
She's really lovely, isn't she?
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to her. Genuinely, it's just really great.
Yeah, very, very cool. And we'll meet up with her in Chiswick. Is it
Yes.
Chiswick? Yeah.
It is Chiswick, yeah. Yeah, I did actually look it up after we finished chatting. And I'm sorry to say this time it's not in a pub, but it's very close to a pub, so I'm sure we can mosey on round the corner to that one.
Oh,
But
cool.
yeah, it'd
Yeah.
be good. And yeah, I think it's in October, and there's some really good people there. Sylvester, Sophie, Bonnie Langford, I think. So it's only £10 a ticket as well, so it's got to be done.
Oh, sweet. Cool.
Yeah.
Remember to check out Daphne's new project, Once More with Feeling. If you just go over to Indiegogo, you can do a search for it on there. I'm sure you'll find it. And we'll stick a link in the show notes as well. It sounds like a really, really cool project. So if you can go over there and donate anything, that would be awesome sauce.
It would, yeah. And also check out Daphne's official Facebook page, because she's been posting loads of really great pictures from the location on there.
Yeah.
They are great, and she's also giving updates on it and posting little video snippets about it as well. So yeah, do that, because it's worth it.
Yeah, looks very cool.
Yes.
So that will wrap for our interview with Daphne, and we will see you guys next week for episode 50, where we're going to be reviewing, Adam,
Love and Monsters.
Love and Monsters. That'll be an interesting one to do.
It will be very interesting.
Yeah, it will. So have a fantastic week, guys, and we will see you then. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember, Alonzi!